What words does a convicted criminal choose to be their last before they die? Would they ask for forgiveness or tell their family they'll miss them? Most probably do. Others, however, have other things to say. Before we start our video, make sure to hit that subscribe button and tap on the bell icon so you never miss out on our latest videos. Here's some of the strangest last words before execution. Number 10. Jimmy Glass. On Christmas of 1982, 20-year-old Jimmy Glass and inmate Jimmy Wingo escaped from jail and shot an elderly couple to death while burglarizing their home. Both blamed each other for the crime and both ended up on the electric chair. His last words before execution was, "I'd rather be fishing." Number 9. Barbara Graham. After a rough childhood and a string of failed marriages, Barbara Graham went into prostitution before being married again to a bartender and drug addict. She soon left him for a business associate of his, Emmett Perkins, who ran an illegal gambling operation. The couple, as well as other accomplices, decided to rob a widow who was rumored to have a large stash of cash in her home. Graham tricked her into letting them into her home by asking to use the phone. To stop the elderly lady's shrieks, she bludgeoned her with her pistol, and as a result killed her. The crew ended up overlooking the money and jewelry and was caught a couple months later after somebody squealed. Bloody Babs, as the media called her, was sentenced to the gas chamber. Her last words before execution. She said, "Good people are always so sure they're right." Number 8. James Lewis Jackson. In 1995, James Lewis Jackson married Sharon Jackson and became a father to 2 stepdaughters. Due to heavy drug use, he had trouble keeping a job. After struggling with the marriage and his wife threatening divorce, he ended up strangling her and her 2 daughters. His last words before execution was, "Pardon, murder me. I'm ready to roll. Time to get this party started." Number 7. Robert Charles Towery. Robert Charles Towery was executed through lethal injecting, which is ironic considering he was charged for injecting battery acid into his victim before strangling him to death in a 1991 robbery. During Towery's last moments, he apologized to the victim's family and cursed his bad mistakes. Before execution, his last words was, "I love my family." Potato, potato, potato. The potato reference was a secret message to his nephew and was a way for saying that everything is okay. Number 6. Johnny Frank Garrett. Indicted for the rape and murder of a nun in 1981. He had a horrific childhood, and a mental health expert once described him as having one of the most virulent histories of abuse and neglect he had encountered in 28 years of practice. There is a lot of speculation that he was innocent since the crime was similar to other incidents that lead back to a detained Cuban refugee. And the last words he said, "I'd like to thank my family for loving me and taking care of me, and the rest of the world can kiss my ass." Number 5. Thomas J. Grasso. Thomas Grasso received the death sentence for strangling an elderly woman with Christmas lights during a robbery, and 6 months later murdering an elderly man to steal his Social Security check. Although his last meal included 4 dozen steamed mussels and clams, a Burger King double cheeseburger, a half-dozen barbecued spare ribs, and 2 strawberry milkshakes, he was disappointed that they substituted spaghetti for SpaghettiOs. And the last words he said, "I did not get my SpaghettiOs, I got spaghetti. I want the press to know this." Number 4. Jeffrey David Matthews. Matthews was indicted for the 1994 murder of his great-uncle, Otis Earl Short, after he and an accomplice robbed his home. Matthews shot Short in the back of the head and slit his wife's throat, but she managed to survive. Jeffrey's last words are, "I think the governor's phone is broke. He hadn't called yet." Number 3. Aline Wino. With a father who was a child molester and hung himself in jail, and a mother who abandoned her to the care of her grandparents, Aline Wino's childhood was a troubling one. By the age of 12, she was involved in drugs and sex. Later on, she became a prostitute. She started her killing spree in 1989, murdering 7 men. The movie Monster was inspired by her life. Aline's last words before execution. "Yes, I would just like to say I'm sailing with the Rock, and I'll be back like Independence Day with Jesus, June 6 like the movie. Big mothership and all, I'll be back. I'll be back." Number 2. James French. In 1958, James French murdered a driver who picked him up from hitchhiking. While serving his life sentence, he decided that he didn't want to live anymore but was too afraid to end his own life. And so, he killed his inmate to compel the state to execute him by electric chair. James' last words before execution. How about this for a headline for tomorrow's paper? French fries. Number 1. George Appel. While getting strapped to the electric chair, George Appel suddenly found the situation humorous and delivered those infamous last words. These words quickly spread through the public and became more remembered than his actual crime. He was convicted of first-degree murder for killing a police officer. Although little is known about that murder, George's last words before execution. Well, gentlemen, you are about to see a baked apple. And that's all for today's video. If you enjoyed what you saw and want more awesome content, don't forget to subscribe and turn on those notifications. Until then, stay curious and keep smiling.